Hello, and welcome back to the FinTech Takes podcast. Today, I have a great episode for you. This is the second half of a conversation that I have been having with Carlos Caro, creator, podcaster, author of the Free Toaster newsletter and podcast, one of my favorite niche FinTech podcasts and newsletters focused exclusively on sort of the marketing and customer acquisition side of financial services, fintech, lending. Carlos is an expert on all of these topics. He's been on the podcast before. I recently went on his podcast to record a conversation about MrBeast buying Step and getting into financial services and the risks and opportunities that MrBeast getting involved in financial services poses. We had a great conversation, but one of the things we didn't get a chance to talk as much about is the recent history of other celebrities and influencers getting involved in fintech. So in this episode, Carlos and I walk through some of that recent history and try to draw on some lessons of other celebrities and influencers who've gotten themselves involved in financial services, how that's gone, what the risks were that maybe they didn't anticipate at the time, and the lessons that we can pull forward from those examples to 2026 as MrBeast steps into this world and tries to build a financial services product that makes sense and that's profitable. It was a great conversation. I will drop a link to the first podcast that I did on Carlos's podcast, The Free Toaster, in the show notes for this episode. And I hope that you listen to them back to back because it's really two parts of one long conversation about financial services and celebrity. So without further ado, here is Carlos Caro. This is FinTech Takes, the podcast keeping you in the loop on all the latest fintech trends, news, and ideas. I'm Alex Johnson, creator of the FinTech Takes newsletter, your host and self-confessed fintech nerd. Let's go. Okay, Carlos, thank you for coming on. This is the second part of our home and away game that we're playing on our podcast, where we are talking about all things celebrities and fintech and the intersection of the two. On your podcast, which we'll include a link to in the show notes, we talked a lot about the MrBeast deal to acquire Step, what we think that means for the fintech ecosystem, where we think the opportunities potentially are for MrBeast, where we think some of the potential dangers are for MrBeast. And it's on that dangers front that you brought up a really good point, which we did not have a chance to get into in a lot of detail on the last podcast we did, which is this has been tried before. And I think thematically, a thing I say around here a lot, is that there are no new ideas in financial services. If you think you've discovered a new idea, you just need to do more research because you haven't. And it turns out the idea of celebrity combined with fintech and building new products for underserved segments of the market, not a new idea, has gone back, I'm sure, much further than we are going to go back. But we are going to go back to the recent past. I think this discussion, Carlos, culturally will date us. So if there are any like Gen Z folks listening, like just trust us, like the people we're going to talk about were a big deal back then, even if they're not necessarily today. And would love, Carlos, to review 3 examples that you uncovered of let's call it 2010s era celebrity fintech products. I've asked you to take the first 2, and then there's a third one that I will take, and then we'll kind of run through these examples and see what lessons perhaps we can draw from the recent past and how they might apply to MrBeast and Step today. So I will give you the floor for the first 2. Why don't you start us off?
All right, cool. Well, it's great to see you again, Alex. Thanks for having me on the show. Always a pleasure. So the 3 cards we'll talk about today, the first is the Kardashian Kard.
And just for spelling purposes, because this is an audio medium, Kardashian Kard, K, Kardashian, with K, Kard. Okay.
With the K, correct. Okay. That is important.
That is
kind
important.
of a hallmark of the branding here. So I had to actually do some wiki research this morning.
Okay.
Because the foundation of the celebrity here was a show I've actually never watched. And it's called Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Ah, yes. A very famous show. I've heard of it. I've never seen it, but I've heard of it.
Oh, I've heard of it for sure. I've never sat in front of the TV and watched the show. Okay. At least to my knowledge. Let's just say that.
Might have been on at some point when you were, okay.
It might have been on. I'm actually pretty sure it was on at some point. Because I do have reality shows. The Housewives show airs in my house all the time. So I'm familiar with those.
Yep.
This is, I think, a generation maybe before those.
Oh, yeah.
And this show got going in 2007. And it was, according to Wiki, in the height of their ratings in 2010. Apparently securing 3.5 to 4 million viewers per episode, which then was a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
And comparing it to YouTube celebrities now, I just went to MrBeast's page.
Yeah.
Just to see, like, what does an average video for him do? And he adds a couple zeros to pretty much all his videos. So he's in like the 100 million type range per video.
Kind of makes the Kardashians look small by comparison, which is a strange thing to say, but
which is wild, is wild, but it's also, 16 years later after that.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show what YouTube and like online distribution can do. But in any case, so they were, I think at the moment, having success with promoting all kinds of consumer products. I don't recall the details of what they were, but probably things in the maybe beauty category or things of that nature that would appeal to kind of a young adult or maybe teenager, and I would assume a skewed female audience.
Yeah.
So they got their eyes set on this credit card, which in fact was a prepaid card. Which is important here because this came on the tail of all the regulatory change that happened as a result of the great financial crisis in 2008.
So this is 2010 when this is happening. So 2008, financial crisis. 2009, we have the Card Act that really kind of restricts what credit cards can do. Okay.
100%. So the Card Act, essentially, for those not familiar with this one, it basically just reined in a bunch of fees that the regulators at the time thought were either unfair or egregious or kind of over the top. And I was in the industry at the time. I was at a large credit card issuer, and I remember the work that went into unwinding some of the practices that led up to that regulation. So they chose prepaid because they thought smartly the Card Act didn't address prepaid card.
Right.
So all that regulation was credit card specifically, prepaid card was kind of excluded. And then the other kind of macro current here, why prepaid? A lot of people who didn't qualify for cards at the time needed a way to transact online. Like e-commerce was booming, buying stuff on your phone, on your computer, etc. So it was important for this younger demo to have access to money in kind of a digital context. So that was part of the reason I think the prepaid product kind of stood out to them as attractive. So they partnered with, it's funny, the name of these folks. The company was called Revenue Resource Group, LLC. And their role in the partnership was dubbed as product development, marketing, and operational management.
Okay.
So I think view these as kind of the business people that attached themselves somehow to the family and said, hey, you're rich already. You want to get even richer? Let's do cards, right? I'm guessing that's the organization that approached them. I guess the conversation could have easily happened the other way. So I'm making an assumption there.
Sure. But given that we've never heard of this company, that would sort of make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming. And then the issue, it was a MasterCard they issued, but it was issued by University National Bank, which I've never heard of.
You're saying words I've never heard of. And it's funny because I worked in the industry at the time like you did. And I obviously, I'm pretty steeped in this area overall. You just said two names of companies I've never heard of, Carlos.
I never heard of them either. Yeah. And I had to just dig in to make sure we're like, are these things even real?
Right.
So look, that's who we're dealing with.
Okay.
But the recognizable name to me was the MasterCard name. So the MasterCard label was on it.
Sure.
And then this launched right around the holiday season in November 2010. So they go for it. And I want to read to you some of the fees associated here. And I'll get just to the punchline here real quick.
Yeah.
But I'm used to seeing prepaid cards at Target or at CVS or at all of these like retail outlets where you can buy a retail card for $100. Maybe you pay $4 or something to activate it. That's what I'm used to. Check this out. The monthly fee charged for the initial 6 or 12 month period. So you have to choose, is it a 12-month or a 6-month period when you sign up?
Okay.
It is $7.95 per month, whether you use the card or not.
Wow.
Is being drawn.
Yeah.
ATM withdrawal, $1.50. Okay, not too crazy. Balance inquiry. Here we start getting funky.
Oh boy.
Just to see your balance at an ATM, they charge $1 just to see it. No transactions, just to see it.
Nice.
You have a question, need to speak to someone over the phone. As soon as they pick up the phone, it's $1.50. Would you like to pay automatically? Would you like automatic bill pay?
Sure.
$2 per instance. Want to reload the card? $1. Again, $1 just to reload the product.
That's amazing.
This one's really egregious, Alex. You're gonna love this one.
Okay.
If you're declined, so there's a fraud policy out there you have no control of, no awareness of.
So I apply for this is me applying for the product or using the product?
No, you now have it. It's loaded. It's ready to go.
Okay.
But for whatever reason, the retail outlet you swiped at declined.
Sure.
And there's a million reasons. I've been declined a bunch of times.
Me too. Yeah.
If the bank chooses to decline you, that's their choice, not yours. You get charged $1.
Oh, glorious. Okay.
There we go. This card is no longer for you. Would you like to close it, Alex?
I would.
How about a $6 fee for that?
Oh, jeez. Carlos, just let me out. I want to get out.
That'll be $6 if you'd like out. Lost your card? Every card I've ever had in my life reissues for free. Does that seem about right to you, Alex?
Yeah.
Lost this one? That'll be $10 to replace it.
I love it.
So pretty egregious, but here's the upshot of this all that just made me chuckle.
Yeah.
The most common plan was the 1-year plan, apparently, where you paid those that $7.95 monthly fee all up front for a year. And then there was an activation fee. I think it was another $10. But net, you were spending $100 on the product to have $5 loaded on the product that you could actually use.
Oh my God.
Which is just beyond anything. And I've seen a lot of crazy products.
Sure.
In the industry, but the thought that you're paying $100 for a prepaid card to have $5 that you can use. And then I'm not even talking about all these fees, right?
Yeah.
You might get hit with a couple declines and then you have $3 left. So pretty wild. So anyway, in any case, they go ahead and move forward.
Sure.
Because of the celebrity behind it, the attorney general in the state of Connecticut, who was senator-elect at the time, caught wind of this. And he sent an inquiry to that company I mentioned earlier.
Sure.
The Revenue Resource Group, LLC.
Yeah, which sounds like a totally real, not sketchy company.
Right. and totally seasoned in fintech and
they know
lending.
What they're doing. Yeah.
And the AG was basically like, hey, just curious, can you show me your fees and your product construct and yada, yada, yada. And things quickly escalated from there. And it got to the point where the Kardashian family started stepping up and making public statements on their social media feeds about how bad and how egregious the product was. So now, complete 180. We're excited about this product. Everyone should get it.
Sure.
Let's go. ooh, the AG is on our case. Ooh, this is scary. We don't like this. This could damage our brand.
Do you think they knew like who what an attorney general is or does before this happened?
I suspect they did. I suspect they did. I suspect they did. Certainly their legal team did. I believe it was Robert Shapiro heading up their legal team. So
so he would know. So here comes the AG and they flip on their own card.
They flip on their own card.
Yeah.
And they didn't even get 3 weeks in until they shut it down. They just flat out shut it. They issued a public statement. We're done with this. I think they communicated to their bank partners. You'd think it would end there.
I would.
But it didn't. The story continues. Now, this Revenue Resource Group, LLC, says, hold on, guys. You guys agreed to promote our product. Seems like you're acting in bad faith now. You're flipping on your word.
Not untrue, I suppose.
And we were expected to make like $75 million off of this. That was our financial plan, yada, yada, whatever. Right? They had their argument, right? So they sue the family for $75 million. And the family, in the face of the lawsuit, and there's another important thing that the AG did. He recategorized the lawsuit not in the prepaid card context, because apparently that was wide open. As the family had noticed, there wasn't a lot of regulation there. I think he succeeded in recategorizing the product as a gift card. And wow. Gift cards apparently have much tighter regulations, much more pro-consumer practices.
Sure.
So that seemed to fly in the courtroom, which I think should have been much scarier to the Kardashian family at the time.
Yeah.
But in any case, there was... I'm going to go back to my notes because I want to recall the details of how this all played out.
Sure, yeah.
So judicial outcome. Here we go. I'm going to read to you the result. Okay. In June 2011, Judge Jeffrey Hamilton ruled in favor of the Kardashians, tossing the $75 million lawsuit. The ruling was significant for two reasons. First, the judge ruled on an what he calls SLAPP, S-L-A-P-P, strategic lawsuit against public participation motion, affirming that the Kardashians had a First Amendment right to speak out on a matter of public concern, the predatory nature of the card, and could not be sued for voicing those concerns. So that set a precedent, apparently. And then the second was the judge determined that the actual cause of the product's failure was the tremendously negative publicity and the AG's investigation, which began long before the sisters made their public comments. Furthermore, Hamilton noted that Revenue Resource Group had failed to show how it could prove the damages on a product that was potentially unlawful or fraudulent under state laws. This established a legal precedent that celebrity endorsers could not be held liable for the failure of a product if that product itself was found to be inherently exploitative or non-compliant with consumer protection standards.
That precedent, I imagine it probably has come up a couple of times since then, given what we're going to be talking about.
I would imagine so. So they came out scot-free here.
Wow. And obviously, as we know, their celebrity continued to rise and they continued on to do other things, and including other businesses, as you were saying before, right? This was not their only foray into celebrity-owned or endorsed businesses. This is, I think, unless I'm forgetting something, their only brief contact with the financial services industry.
I believe so. I believe they've rightfully stayed away after this.
My goodness. That's a good one.
I remember I was at a large institution.
Yeah.
Closely plugged into the card space.
Yeah.
This didn't even hit my radar, Alex.
It was 3 weeks.
It was 3 weeks. No one even talked about it. So I think from a damage control perspective, they did an exceptional job.
Yep.
They noticed the problem early. They shut it down.
Yep.
You could wonder whether they knew whether the terms of the card were what they were. But the plaintiff in the case, the RRG group, they said that on 2 times they reviewed contractually and that they signed off explicitly saying that they understood and acknowledged. So I think maybe contractually there was that awareness, but maybe from a practical or business context, that just a detail that was lost. So that is possible.
One does wonder with it, like, I'm not trying to be too mean here, but like if they saw the fees and they were like, oh yeah, call a customer service agent, pay $1, like that makes sense. Like maybe one of the challenges with celebrity-based products is that it's difficult when you're trying to serve the underserved or trying to build a market for a product for a market that doesn't have a good product, that like if you don't understand those consumers, like you might not really be able to like empathize with like, how will this fee come across? Is this reasonable? Like I'm sure they probably looked at it, but to what degree did like the obvious sort of problems with the fee structure occur to them, or were they just like, yeah, seems reasonable? Like I'd be if I could hop in a time machine, sometimes I wish I had like a fintech time machine where I could just go back and like observe different moments in history. I would love to see like looking at that and reviewing it and being like, yeah, seems fine, just sign off. Like it's wild in retrospect, and obviously they flipped on it very fast. Also, I guess the Attorney General of Connecticut getting involved probably blew this out of proportion in a pretty quick way relative to what could have happened.
I think that was it. And if I'm putting myself in their shoes, like I'm flying on private jets, I'm a celebrity superstar, and like
you're right in high. I mean, 2010 is like their time. Yeah.
Now, like $7.95 monthly fee. That doesn't sound like a lot of money.
No.
When you're flying on private jet, no, it's like, okay, that's actually low.
It's fine. Yeah.
Should we raise it? Cost. Should we make it 20? Should we make it 30?
Right. Yeah. I mean, if anything, like the question would be more like, are we going to make enough money off of this to make it worth it for us? But like, that's not the other issue. The other thing I want to flag, and then I want you to jump to your next example, because I think it'll help us build on some of these, but just as a quick flag, the fee structure stuff is fascinating because another way of looking at the fee structure component is, the celebrity involved in this product is going to do well or not based on like its growth and scale and success, and probably to a degree like the sort of halo effect it has for their overall brand. And like, oh, I love the Kardashians, I have their card, I used it to pay for dinner. Like it's probably accretive to their entire brand enterprise, not just like nickel and diming people for $1 here, $1 there. I think where a lot of this also comes in is the nature of like banking as a service in the 2010s, and the tiny little bank in Minnesota needing to cover its costs and protect itself, which is, I think, a theme that maybe is going to come up again and again. So why don't you give us, take us back again into peak 2010s culture, which I would say is like peak culture, in my opinion. Take us back to like peak culture. What's another celebrity card that came out around this time?
Well, it was Justin Bieber. So he was a little bit later. Yeah. But actually, before we change gears, a fun fact I discovered about the Kardashian launch. How many prepaid cards do you think they actually booked in that 3 weeks?
I wanted to ask you about this. Oh gosh, this is such a hard question because 3 weeks is like not a lot of time. And as we talked about, they don't have as much reach as like a MrBeast or someone now. I'm going to say 5,000.
5,000. Yeah, no, I would have guessed something like that. 10,000.
Yeah.
250.
Excellent.
I'm gonna go ahead and venture to guess that even if the AG hadn't even noticed or done anything, on its own face, I think consumers would have seen like, hey, look, maybe the value isn't quite there.
Yeah, well, and that's it's so funny. That also speaks to another theme, the limits of how far a celebrity can actually push something if the thing itself doesn't make sense. And we've seen this actually across a whole bunch of different areas, right? Like, it's great that you love this product or you launch this product or you stand behind this product, but especially I think with like financial services, like this kind of needs to make dollars and sense for me. It needs to have utility for me. And 250 does not suggest a great deal of success. It's wild that it's 250 people and the state AG of Connecticut gets involved. They get sued. Like such a bigger problem for them than it was even ultimately even coming close to being worth it. Okay,
wild.
That is crazy.
And to think that you book 250 accounts on a prepaid product, and all of a sudden you're getting sued for $75 million.
Oh my gosh. That is crazy for fees that you probably looked at for 2 seconds. Okay. Love it. That one is great. All right. Take us to what, 2013 for Bieber. Okay.
We're gonna move out to 2013. We're gonna have to talk about branding here, because this is gonna be one of the key lessons in the next one.
Okay.
And in my view, it's one of the places where Bieber's product made a strategic mistake.
Okay.
But we're looking at another prepaid card.
Another prepaid card. Okay.
Yeah. You'd think that the celebrity partnerships on the prepaid card would have been squashed after the one we just talked about.
You'd think Kardashian would be a warning to all of them, but apparently not.
Yeah, so this one launched on November 28th, 2012.
Okay.
So we're talking about almost exactly 2 years later. Bieber was then 18, and he had a social media following at the time that pretty much dwarfed all other public figures. So, but I actually think, to his credit, I actually think he hit on something important here.
Okay.
Because he was actually more going after a teen demographic.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And he didn't grow up with a lot of money. And, I think he remembers, being 12, 13, 14, 15, and wanting access to stuff through cards, whether it be online or otherwise. So
and at this time, like the idea of like teen cards and fintech for young adults was really not like a thing. And so this is kind of,
Greenlight's out there now doing it. I think,
There's plenty of ones now. Step obviously does this, which MrBeast just acquired. Like, this is a common design pattern now, but back then, not so much.
So, but I think the first problem was the branding. He called the product BillMyParents.
Oh.
So it was, it's a prepaid card, but it was, again, the customer here is the parent. That's the buyer. The parent has to feel good about transacting here, but the card is called, it's either BillMyParents or BillMyParent. And it's a debit card. They actually had some cool features. Okay. So you could freeze the account remotely if you saw purchases you weren't comfortable with. You could reload it very easily. There was a way to quickly load money in case of emergencies. So I think there was some thoughtfulness there put into the features. The fees weren't nearly as egregious. So $3.95 for the monthly maintenance.
Okay.
They charged $2.95 to load money each time. So, we're not, ATM withdrawals were $1.50. ATM balance inquiry, again, we're charging for it 50 cents this time. Card replacements aren't $9.95, they're $7.95. So this starts to look and feel a lot like what we just talked about with the Kardashians.
Yeah.
And then an inactivity fee. There's a monthly charge of $3 for every month you don't use the product.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
So that one's tough because it's basically designed to just run off the money once you forget about it.
Yeah.
And then so BillMyParents was indeed the branding. The issue here was not so much an AG or a lawsuit or anything like that. It was the fact that Bieber's behavior in 2013 and 14.
I remember those.
It kind of transitioned from clean cut, lovable kid who sings songs to, in a way, kind of rebellious, troublemaking, irresponsible celeb.
I remember this. The transition to adulthood. Yes, I do remember this.
That was it. So, what really was the big issue, I think, that eventually killed the card here, wasn't so much bad press. It was the fact that Amex and Walmart launched very similar products that basically just killed all the fees. So, and this one was Amex Bluebird. I don't know if you remember the launch of this one.
I do.
No monthly fee, no loading cost.
Yeah.
Free to check your stuff at the ATM, and obviously under the Amex network. And then Walmart's money card was similar, where they they actually did have a $3 monthly fee that was waivable. So, so this one, I'm looking here if there was any CFPB action. Mm-hmm. They ended up looking closely at the prepaid market because now they had two examples. They had the Kardashian Kard and this one, like two really big notable celebrity examples. And they ended up running legislation on the category on fee transparency, overdraft restrictions, fraud protections, etc. So that legislation, I believe it took years to get through. I think it didn't go out till like 2018, something like that.
Is this rulemaking from the CFPB?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I remember this. Yeah. They were very focused on, I think, learning kind of the emerging lessons from the prepaid debit space. Because this was, I mean, just again, for people who maybe weren't as active in fintech at the time, like prepaid was the cutting edge of banking as a service and bringing financial services as infrastructure to different places and different product constructs. Prepaid was the vehicle all this happened in, right? Like in some ways, prepaid crawled so that banking as a service could walk. And now I guess crypto and stable coins can run. Like this has been the evolution of this. And so, yeah, it doesn't surprise me to hear that the CFPB sort of stepped in from a rulemaking perspective around this time based on some of these examples. There was a lot. And there's ones we're not going to talk about, like Rush Card and some others that were really formative, bad experiences that kind of taught the regulators in this space some good lessons.
Yeah. So this one ended up with Bieber was paid $3.75 million upfront for the endorsement.
And this is the Spend Smart Payments Company, which then rebranded itself to BillMyParents that he's working with. So it's a separate company.
It started as BillMyParents. They rebranded to Spend Smart.
Oh, rebranded to Spend Smart. Okay, well that's a smart rebrand.
No, it was a good rebrand, but smart. I think it was a little too late.
Yeah, that makes sense. So this is kind of like the one we'd never heard of that the Kardashians were working with. Like it's another one of these companies that's like, hey, we have an idea for like a way to go to market. Let's partner with these celebrities to launch these prepaid debit cards. And so this is another example of that.
Yeah. And this one, I think same theme, different manifestation. Mm-hmm. The Kardashians explicitly turned on the bank partner as soon as the AG said, hey, this is no good. Mm-hmm. In this case, Bieber was doing his job for a little while.
Sure.
Until he started acting out in public. And then the bank was like, do we really want this guy as the... So it was the other way around. Like his behavior changed. It wasn't... I don't suspect he was trying to get out of the bank deal.
Sure. Well,
I suspect he was just...
Yeah.
I suspect he was living his life, enjoying his hard-earned money.
Yeah.
But he's 21 years old. He's going to do some... regrettable stuff. I mean, if we all had the camera shining 24/7 on us when we were that age, we wouldn't have looked all that great either.
The Alex Johnson card launched at 21 would not have been a success, I don't think.
My card would have failed for sure. So, I mean, I think the thing he did right is he hit on a val prop that was missing in the market. I think what was missing for me is the right bank partner execution and just the consistency in the brand that he was promoting. Like it just wasn't quite there. But this, no, as far as I can tell, there were no, real victims here. I mean, there may have been some consumers that didn't feel like they got great value off of this thing. But if you're buying the Bieber card, you're probably not getting it because it's the best product out there. You're probably just trying to support the creator.
I'm sure that's true. Did you get numbers on how many cards were out there?
Let me see. I don't remember. It didn't jump off the page, but let me see if I have it.
Because the scale of these things is fascinating to me. I mean, I'm just kind of blown away by like the reach and the effectiveness of the reach of these creators or celebrities of different times. And it ties back to our conversation about MrBeast and his 467 million YouTube subscribers. These things operate on very different scales now, it feels.
Yeah, I have a Gemini query running on your question.
Okay, all right. I am curious.
When it fires up, I'll let you know.
Okay, that I am curious about that, and I also think, going to your earlier point, like again, this theme, which is going to keep popping up, of the fees. Now, obviously, they're not as egregious as the Kardashian Kard ones, but they're still like not nothing, right? Like there's a lot of fees associated with different aspects, and I guess I had just kind of forgotten. I mean, obviously I studied this space at the time, but like prepaid debit cards, like they were sort of billed as like a product for the underbanked, but they were very fee heavy products, right? And like if you wanted a general purpose reloadable card, maybe branded with the Bieber card or the Kardashian card or whatever, like it was not inexpensive. And even like features that were sort of novel at the time, like your parents can monitor your spending, they can lock the card down, they can do these different things, like that was very innovative at the time. But it's kind of quaint to talk about those as like the cutting edge features then compared to like what cards do now. So it is interesting to think about the fees versus the value exchange with a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, no, you're right. I absolutely take for granted all the monitoring and the apps and all of that.
It just is built in. It's like less than
I actually
stakes.
haven't used a prepaid card in quite some. No, like let me take that back. I actually had one issued. There was some. I think one of the bureaus actually. It might have been Equifax.
Yeah. I remember that.
They had some, I think, class action against them, and the way they issued out payment, at least to me, was through some kind of prepaid card.
So it's used as a vehicle for that kind of stuff.
No, so I remember getting the card. It might have been only like a digital only kind of disbursement. But it was kind of clunky. Like it was. It wasn't like the experience I see with like the major card issuers, as far as like transaction monitoring and all that sort of thing.
Well, and you mentioned like Amex and Bluebird and Walmart around this time. Like that was when I think prepaid as a vehicle for reaching underserved segments kind of jumped up a level. And to your point, like if you're an American Express, you can find ways to cover the costs associated with some of this stuff and really lower the fees and lower like the barrier to entry. Walmart, same way. Like this was when I think these products were sort of graduating into a different level. And I think it did make it harder for the companies that we didn't even recognize the names that were partnering with these celebrities back then. Like, how do those companies compete with an American Express or a Walmart on this stuff? Like, it becomes really difficult to do, even if you have celebrity backers who are helping to like push the product. Carlos, can I give you a third example, which is like slightly different, but fits into this same sort of broad theme?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So this is I'll go back slightly in time. This is like 2012. So roughly around the same time as the Bieber card. This is Suze Orman, who's well known as a sort of financial coach, advisor, provider of financial advice out in the world. She, at various times, has had columns, television shows, radio shows, just various different platforms where she gives financial advice, similar to like a Dave Ramsey or others within that world. Taking us back to 2012, she's very, very big at the time. And this is kind of like the height of her powers as like a financial advice influencer sort of expert. She decides to launch let me make sure I'm getting the name of the card correct. This is the approved card from Suze Orman. It's designed to, again, serve this sort of underbanked population that became very popular in the public consciousness in the 2010s following the great financial crisis, sort of running on the sort of fumes of like, oh, the banks have screwed us over. They've left all these parts of the markets like open. Well, here comes Suze Orman to save these folks and to help with this problem. I would say, kind of building on your example with Bieber, the product that she launched was intended to be a prepaid debit card for underbanked individuals who wanted a lower cost access to a product. So this product, similar to the ones you described, had a lower fee. It was, if I'm looking at my notes here, it was like a $3 monthly maintenance fee, which again, compared to like the $7.99 or $7.95 that the Kardashians had, or Rush Card back in the day, I think was like a $10 fee. So it was fairly competitive, not quite as much as like when Amex and Walmart and those guys got into it, but fairly low cost upfront. It was launched in partnership with a bank I actually have heard of called the Bank Corp, which is still around and still very much a player in this space. They sort of emerged in the 2010s as one of the big sort of card program managers behind a lot of this sort of innovative prepaid stuff that existed at the time. A lot of what we consider to be the first like neobanks in a classic sense were built on top of the Bank Corp. And so they were the ones behind the Suze Orman card. She designed it to also solve another problem, Carlos, that I thought you'd find fascinating. One that I think you and I have probably covered more recently, which is credit building. She was very focused as a financial advisor and consultant and financial expert on the sort of catch-22 problem of having to take out debt in order to build a credit score, but also needing a credit score in order to take out any debt. So the kind of classic catch-22 problem with credit scoring. She tried to tackle this with her card by entering into an arrangement with TransUnion that would have basically given TransUnion 18 to 24 months of anonymized debit card transaction data from users of this card that would basically be used by TransUnion to study if that data could be used to positively influence someone's credit score. And I guess the theory was if that initial study turned out to be positive, then maybe the credit bureaus would start incorporating, let's call it, cash flow data into the traditional credit data. Maybe at some point FICO would launch a new version of its score that would take this data into consideration, and Suze Orman and her card could be a part of sort of changing the way that credit scoring and the credit reporting ecosystem works. Okay, very novel,
no, it's
very
funny.
interesting
It's funny.
idea.
I'm glad you said you gave the cash flow analogy, because I don't hear a lot of people out there in the industry giving Suze credit for being an early pioneer of this.
No, I mean,
and I think she really was. I mean, she really took it didn't work, but she really did take a crack at it.
I totally agree. I mean, I was looking at the dates. She launched this in 2012. The earliest, I think, like example of a fintech company that really kind of bet a lot on building out like cash flow data as an alternative to the FICO score and credit bureau data was the Pedal card. And that was 2016,
yep.
Right? So Pedal was 2016. That's 4 years later. A couple years after that, in 2018, FICO announces the Ultra FICO score, which was the first kind of credit score that proposed to take cash flow data into consideration. Obviously, it's taken about another, I would say, like 6 to 8 years for us to be like now where cash flow underwriting is considered to be like pretty common sense and everyone is sort of moving towards it. So thank you from the FinTech Takes podcast to Suze Orman for being an early pioneer on this front. I will say in classic sort of VC parlance, being early is the same as being wrong, unfortunately, for Suze Orman. And that kind of takes us back to the success of the product. So she launches in 2012 with the Bank Corp, lower upfront kind of headline fee structure attached to it. Apart from this credit building thing, I couldn't really find a lot of other things that made the product that distinct from others. It was kind of your classic prepaid card. And obviously the credit scoring thing, while prescient in some ways, didn't work, right? Didn't do anything because TransUnion was just going to study the data. There was nothing operationalized around it. And so you couldn't use this card and like see your FICO score go up. That's not how it worked at the time. And interestingly, even though she did have very kind of low headline fees, this card, in keeping with what we were just talking about, had a lot of sort of nickel and diming on secondary fees. So going back, Carlos, to what you were describing before, if you call the call center, you get one free call to a live agent per month. Subsequent calls cost $2 each. Not great. Checking a balance at an ATM cost between $1 and $2. A $1 to $2 fee was also applied if a transaction was declined at an ATM. There was a fee for loading cash onto the card, since the card was not traditionally part of like a bank branch deposit network. So if you wanted to use a service like Western Union or MoneyGram, they would also charge on top of that. And then there were just miscellaneous charges for things like cash over the counter from a bank teller, writing a check, all that kind of stuff. So again, this sort of nickel and diming of behind the scenes fees. What was interesting, and I guess this is kind of similar to Justin Bieber, although it's the sort of like financial, personal finance blogging community version of it. This card came under some criticism when it launched, and there were sort of early personal finance bloggers and then traditional financial journalists who criticized the card and who criticized Suze Orman. And in classic sort of PR mistake fashion, instead of engaging in sort of a genuine, open approach, Suze decided to sort of like erupt on Twitter over this and called all of the critics of her product idiots. It turned into kind of a whole big mess on Twitter. This is like 2012, so this is very sort of early Twitter controversies. Probably is sort of like would look kind of quaint by modern standards, but back then became like a big deal and a PR problem. She eventually had to issue sort of a blanket public apology for all the people that she called idiots. There's apparently a lot of like PR pressure that sort of her PR firm put on different financial journalists who were trying to cover it. And so it ultimately kind of tanked her reputation within the sort of broader financial advice, financial journalism ecosystem, and created some kind of bad press for her and for the product. And then ultimately, what caused the product to fail was not so much Suze Orman. So the product itself kind of limped along from 2012 to 2014. But in 2014, the Bank Corp, her bank partner, got itself into some trouble. So this will sound very familiar to folks who are aware of how banking as a service has evolved. The Bank Corp got in trouble with regulators over BSA and AML issues, was issued a consent order, got into a settlement with the FDIC, and as such, had to basically close a bunch of the programs that it was running at the time.
Were the concerns from the regulators specific to Suze's product or broader?
They were broader. So it was not necessarily Suze's product. It was more broader concerns around BSA, AML, across all the programs that the Bank Corp was running at the time, as well as some issues with UDAP concerns with marketing. And that ultimately ended up, I think, along with the kind of failure of this card to gain widespread acceptance, for the card to be closed down in 2014. So lasted a little bit longer, had a slightly more serious partner, but still ran into many of the same issues we've been talking about.
Yeah, one other thing I remember reading about this one at the time. I think this one was a little bit more on my radar. But coming in, just preparing for our conversation today, I was looking at some of the notes there. And one of the issues Suze had as a financial guru is she was actually really well respected.
Yeah.
I think continues to be well respected as far as the quality of her advice.
Yeah.
But what that did is it created what some thought was an impossibly high standard for her to meet.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you start transacting, especially in this category, right? You're talking cash flow underwriting, you're talking inherently subprime, riskier consumers. You have to charge fees that to some won't look great. You have to have an annual fee. You have to have some kind of high interest rate. Yeah. The math just doesn't pan out unless you price the risk appropriately.
Yep.
And whether she priced the risk appropriately or not, you could debate that. Mm-hmm. But I think the point here is when you come in as a financial guru, where the bar for your advice and your credibility is super high, nothing you put out in the subprime category is going to meet that bar, I think.
I agree.
So like, I think she put herself in a tough spot starting here. She could have started in a different place, right? She could have started with prime or savings or retirement account. I think she could have played her brand much better into a host of other products, but she started in subprime card, which I think is maybe the hardest place for, at least with someone with her brand.
It was kind of a trap, honestly. It seems like in the 2010s was this idea that like, oh, banks are evil. They've left behind all these customers. Here comes prepaid debit. And it's kind of like a trap that I think a bunch of celebrities and a bunch of companies fell into at that time, is like, how do we build a good business around this? So Carlos, to wrap up across these 3 examples, I want to ask you to distill all of these examples into one lesson that might be applicable to MrBeast, or one takeaway. And I'll start with one and then you go, okay?
Yeah. Man, there's a couple on my mind, but I'll give you one that really stood out looking at all of this. And the big one for me was brand alignment. So, the Kardashians were, I think, totally misaligned to their audience.
Yeah.
You just look at the content of their TV show, what they stand for, what they represent. I don't think they were out for like the little person out there to financial like nothing about their brand stood out to me as well aligned with what they were doing.
Well, prepaid is such a weird structure for them. Like, here's a reloadable prepaid debit card. Like, did they know what a prepaid card was? Had they ever used one? Like, it was, they should have launched a ultra premium credit card is what they should have done.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. I think in Bieber's case, his brand alignment, I think, was kind of right on the mark, to be honest with you, at the start.
But then he became an adult,
but then he veered
and went crazy
then he
for
went
a couple of years, and so does
but
Wild Oats. And that kind of, it's a good point, because it's like, this is for parents to give to their kids, but it's being given to you by someone who you don't want your kids acting like there's a brand misalignment there.
Yeah, the BillMyParents branding was off, but they realized that they moved back to spend smart. And then in Suze's case, I actually think the brand alignment was maybe okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't so off. I just think it could have been much better, right? Because I don't think she thought through that everyone in subprime, everyone in prepaid has brand and credit. Like, everyone who plays in this space, pick your favorite card. The biggest, most successful banks in this category, you go to Better Business Bureau or you go to Google and you look at reviews, people leave and everyone's complaining and bitching about fees. Like, it's really hard to escape that. So when your celebrity influence is tied directly to that category, it's way more risky than starting with, I don't know, retirement accounts or IRA. Like, there's just so many ways she could have played her first entry into financial services. So to me, brand alignment just really stood out as something you need to nail to make it work.
That's a good one. I will build on that by saying that I think the other thing that is just really hard in financial services, and this is something we talked about on your podcast with MrBeast as well, is it's really hard to make money in financial services. And to a degree, making money in financial services carries brand risk associated with it. And I'm struck by all these examples because, like, it's so different than how fintech became in the late 2010s and 2020s. Like, in the 2020s, you could be a neobank serving any population. You could come in and say, hey, here's our product. It has 0 fees in any way. There are no fees associated with this product at all, right? And they were able to do that because in the 2020s in particular, VC firms were just like, here, take all of our cash, build out a product. You don't have to have it make any economic sense at all and just scale it up. But, if you go back to like the early 2010s, that well of just unlimited financial support didn't exist, right? And so if you were a celebrity and you wanted to launch one of these products, great, but the bank partner wasn't going to let you get away with any unit economics that didn't make sense from day one, from day zero. Like, it had to make sense at the start for the bank. And as such, it was really hard to avoid your product not being seen as predatory. Obviously, the Kardashian one was particularly extreme, but like the Bieber one and the Suze Orman one, that's really getting nickeled and dimed for a lot of fees that someone like a Chime, who came along later, they basically just said, we'll use VC cash to subsidize you getting used to this product, and we will sort of force the market to accept no fees for these things. And then at scale, with our payment volume, we'll eventually figure out a way to turn it into a good business. And so I wonder, as it relates to MrBeast and Step, and this is something we talked about before, how does he want to make money on this? And how are those ways in which he might make money or cover his costs? Is it going to be fees? Are those going to be seen as predatory? Like, we talked about some of the examples on your podcast of him doing burgers, him doing chocolate. Like those things don't have the same kind of economic challenges from a product sort of pricing construction standpoint that financial services does. And so I think it'll be a really tricky puzzle for him to figure out if he wants to make money on financial services or if he wants to sort of learn the lesson of the Kardashians and Suze Orman and Justin Bieber and say, you know what? The brand value of doing this well to my brand is worth just breaking even, or is worth maybe even losing a little bit of money, at least in the short term, to build trust and to build a product that people really like. And we trust over time that will be additive to the overall brand of Beast Industries. I'm very curious to see how he's thinking about that, because to me, these examples very clearly illustrate the downside of doing that in a bad way.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it. I was sitting here wondering why the banks were so aggressive and so egregious in their fees here.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it had to do with what you just said. Like VCs weren't pouring money into the category.
No, like if you wanted to do this, you had to make sense on day one, which is just so
and
so
the
out of
banks
touch with
might
how
have
easy it is.
The banks, maybe not so much in Suze's case, but with the Kardashians and Bieber, they might have actually correctly assumed there was going to be some negative select coming in through the audience.
Yeah.
These were going to be like riskier than average people that apply, and they had to price their risk in. Although on a prepaid card, you could say, hey, there's really not a lot of risk here. You know?
Well, apparently, on the Kardashian card, if it was a fraudulent transaction, boom, we got to price that risk. So that's pretty wild. Okay, Carlos, I will let you go. This was a great tour through, again, not that long ago, fintech history, and some interesting lessons to be learned. Thank you, as always, for hopping on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Yeah, super fun to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you for listening to this episode of FinTech Takes. Stay up to date with emerging companies and the latest fintech trends by subscribing wherever you get your podcasts. And if you love FinTech Takes, please tell a friend.